He been butting me for 2 fights.
But you got to address it, Mike.
I did address it. I addressed it in the ring.
Why did you do that, though, Mike? I mean, was that the proper response?
Look at me.
I went back out there again, and I caught him with a good shot, and he bit my ear on purpose again. He spit the mouthpiece out. He spit the mouthpiece out.
Mike Tyson bit a piece off Evander Holyfield's ear in front of the world. Years later, sitting in front of a camera with nothing left to protect, he admitted he liked doing it. That's the line that should stop you cold. The bite isn't the story, the satisfaction is. Tyson looked back at the worst moment of his public career and recognized something in it that still felt good to him. A man who snaps does not say that. A man who regrets does not say that. This was someone who found something dark inside himself on June 28, 1997, decided he wasn't going to pretend it wasn't his, and then lived with that answer out loud. MGM Grand Garden Arena, Las Vegas. The rematch everyone wanted, billed as the sound and the fury. Holyfield had already taken his belts in November 1996 with an 11th round TKO, a fight almost nobody in boxing picked him to win. This night was supposed to be the correction. Tyson opened as a betting favorite. The pay-per-view pulled close to 2 million buys at roughly $50 apiece, which at the time was the biggest gate in boxing history. Tyson's purse was $30 million, Holyfield's was $35. The room paid to see a demolition. What they got has no clean comparison anywhere in the history of the sport. Round 2, Holyfield lands a headbutt that opens a cut above Tyson's right eye, deep. Blood tracks down his face for the rest of the night. Mills Lane, the referee, rules it accidental, no point deduction. Tyson walks back to his corner, complaining. His team wants the headbutt ruled intentional. The Nevada officials wave it off. Round 3, Tyson comes out of the corner without his mouth guard. His trainer, Richie Giacchetti, has to scream at him to go back and put it in. That detail got lost in the chaos of everything else that happened that night, but it's the first sign. A mouth guard isn't just protection. It's the physical barrier that keeps a boxer from doing exactly what Tyson was about to do. He went out there the first time without it. About 40 seconds into the round, Tyson closes the distance, gets inside Holyfield's guard and bites a chunk out of his right ear. The piece lands on the canvas. Holyfield jumps, spins, points at his ear. Mills Lane stops the action. He wants to disqualify Tyson on the spot. The ringside physician clears Holyfield to continue. Lane deducts 2 points and restarts the fight. Seconds later, Tyson bites the other ear. That is the part most people forget. The fight wasn't stopped because of one bite. It was stopped because Tyson got a second chance inside that ring and used it to do the exact same thing again. At that point, Lane had no choice. Disqualification, fight over. That sequence destroys the story the media ran with for months afterward. The story was that Tyson was provoked, bleeding, pushed past his limit by dirty tactics, and a referee who let it go, a wounded animal reacting on instinct. That framing wrote itself, and it stuck. Holyfield's own account cuts straight through it. He said when he felt the first bite, his initial reaction was confusion, not pain.
You see how high I jumped. I said,
no, it was crazy. You just leaped up in the air.
He turned to look at Tyson, expecting to see rage, expecting the face of a man who had lost control. What he saw was calm, deliberate, someone who knew exactly what he was doing and had made his peace with it before it happened. The he snapped version needs chaos to work. It needs a man swallowed by the moment, someone who acted without thinking and regretted it the second it was over. Holyfield's account gives you none of that. It gives you a fighter who made a decision, executed it, and then made the same decision again 30 seconds later after the referee had already given him a warning. The media didn't want that version. It was cleaner to call it a breakdown. Easier to explain a crack in the foundation than a choice made in full awareness. So the breakdown story became the official record, replayed and repeated until it stood in for the truth. But the real story is in what Tyson said afterward, when the cameras eventually went away and he had nothing left to protect. In the ring that night, still wired and hot, he told reporters the headbutt made him do it. He said he had children to raise.
Look at me. Look at me. I gotta go home and my kids are gonna be scared of me. Look at me, man.
He said he had to retaliate, self-defense almost. The framing of a wronged man who responded in kind, that is not the version he gave later. Years out from the fight, with the legal consequences settled and the public outrage cooled off, Tyson started talking about the bite differently. He described it with an energy that doesn't fit the provoked defense. He called himself a savage. He said he felt alive. Alive in a way the fight itself wasn't giving him any more. He wasn't confessing. He was almost reminiscing. That distinction is the whole story. Real remorse has a texture. You hear it in the pauses, in the way someone breaks eye contact with the question. Tyson doesn't give you that. What he gives you is a man who made peace with it long ago, not because he processed the harm he caused, but because somewhere in his own head, it still reads like a win. He took something from Evander Holyfield that night, literally and otherwise, and part of him never stopped being satisfied about it. His framing of Holyfield in those later interviews tells you the rest. Decades on, Tyson still presents Holyfield as the architect of what happened. The headbutts, the physicality, the aggressor who made the bite necessary. He softens it occasionally, throws in a compliment, but the spine of the story never changes. Holyfield started it, Tyson finished it. The responsibility slides off him. He is not haunted by what he did. He built a version of events where he was simply the one who refused to back down. That pattern runs through everything Tyson says about his most violent moments. He romanticizes them, turns them into proof that he was real, that he was dangerous, that he existed in a way the world could not ignore. Violence for Tyson was identity long before it was a profession. And by 1997, it was the only language he fully trusted. To understand why the bite felt like liberation to him, you have to back up 20 years. Brooklyn in the 1970s, a kid who was already broken before boxing ever found him. Cus D'Amato took in a 13-year-old Mike Tyson with over 30 arrests on his record, who had watched violence up close his entire life, who already understood that the world responded to force. D'Amato didn't heal any of that. He used it. He built a training philosophy around the rage, sharpened the fear into aggression, taught a damaged child that his darkest instincts were his greatest assets. And it worked spectacularly. Tyson was heavyweight champion at 20 years old, the youngest in history. But the sport left him with no framework for who he was outside of Iron Mike. The character D'Amato constructed had swallowed the person whole. Iron Mike was a psychological cage dressed up as a nickname. Tyson inhabited it so completely that by his mid-20s, he had no idea what existed underneath. The sport had given him everything and built him to need it. The violence, the submission of opponents, the ongoing proof that he was still the most dangerous man alive. When that proof started slipping, when Holyfield beat him in November 1996, the cage had nothing left to hold. Then came Don King. King didn't build Tyson. He inherited the wreckage after D'Amato died in 1985 and proceeded to monetize it without maintenance. By the time the rematch arrived, Tyson had earned somewhere north of $300 million across his career and was already circling insolvency. The money moved through a system designed to enrich everyone around him first. Managers, promoters, entourage, attorneys, accountants, all of them feeding from the same source while he trained, fought, and absorbed the punishment. Nobody in his orbit had any incentive to address his mental state. A stable Tyson was a compliant Tyson. A compliant Tyson kept the machine running. That meant no one in his corner that night was equipped to handle what they were watching. When the cut opened and the frustration built, the men around him had no tools for it. They could wrap hands. They could give tactical instructions between rounds. They couldn't reach the part of him that was already past the fight, already looking for a way to matter in a moment where he was losing. And the Nevada State Athletic Commission handed him the fight anyway. The first headbutt should have prompted a more serious examination. It didn't. The ringside doctor cleared him. Lane let it continue, and the conditions that produced the bite weren't purely psychological, they were structural, a system that prioritized the spectacle over the safety of the men inside it. They kept the fight going. Tyson found his own way to end it. Holyfield, years later, didn't reach for rage to explain it. He said he believes Tyson had already given up on winning and needed a different exit. Not a loss, an escape, a way out that didn't require him to keep pretending he still had control of anything. None of that excuses what he did, and Tyson, when he's honest, knows it. D'Amato, King, the commission, the headbutts, the cut, the isolation, the financial drain circling him like a slow leak. All of it is context. Context is not a defense. A grown man, in full awareness, bit a piece of another man's ear off, then did it again 30 seconds later. Then described the feeling as something close to pleasure. The system shares blame for what it made him. Tyson owns what he did with it. The punishment came fast. His license was revoked. The Nevada State Athletic Commission fined him $3 million, the maximum they were allowed to levy. He was out of boxing for over a year. And when the mics came back, he still found ways to keep Holyfield partially in frame as the cause. The provoked defence kept doing just enough work to keep his hands partially clean. Holyfield never played along. His response to Tyson's later admissions, to the interviews where Tyson called himself a savage and talked about feeling alive, is one of the starkest contrasts this sport has ever produced. Holyfield forgave him, publicly, genuinely, without condition. He talked about Tyson as someone he pitied more than resented, a man whose pain was visible even when his behaviour was inexcusable. He said he prayed for him, not for performance, because his faith was real enough to absorb even that.
I prayed. Now, this is how I end up praying for all my whole life.
Put those two men side by side and the picture is brutal. One of them lost a piece of his ear in front of the world and responded with grace. The other bit it off and spent the next 2 decades constructing a story in which he wasn't really the villain. That contrast doesn't make Holyfield a saint or Tyson a monster. It makes Tyson a man who never developed the tools to sit with what he had done. That absence is the core of this whole story. Boxing built him to destroy. It never taught him to reckon. The sport that handed him belts, paychecks, and global fame had no mechanism for the moment after the lights went down, no structure for accountability, no pathway back from the worst version of himself. So he stayed there, circling the same justifications, returning to the same romanticized version of a night that ended a man's ear and his own prime inside the same 3 seconds. He called himself a boy in a man's world in one of his later interviews. He wasn't wrong. But Evander Holyfield's ear didn't grow back because Tyson had a difficult childhood. The damage was there no matter what the explanation was. That is the part Tyson has never fully faced out loud, and probably never will. Here is where it lands. Tyson's enjoyment of the bite is the entire story. It's the window into a man the sport constructed out of trauma, handed to exploiters and discarded the moment he stopped being profitable. The system holds real blame for that, but Tyson stepped into the ring that night as an adult, made a choice, bit a man's ear off, got a second chance from the referee, and used it to bite the other one. Then felt good about it. Then spent the rest of his career finding ways not to fully own it. Holyfield lost a piece of his ear. What Tyson lost is harder to name. The possibility of being seen as a man rather than a weapon, a legacy that wasn't permanently defined by 3 seconds in the 3rd round. And the darkest part is this: Tyson knowing he liked it and saying it out loud is either the most honest thing he has ever done or the most damning. It's probably both at once. The bite was the most honest moment of his career. That's what makes it so disturbing. Drop a comment below. Do Tyson's own admissions make him more honest or more dangerous? Subscribe to Beyond the Ring for more investigations like this one. There are stories in this sport that have never been told straight.